I have to do this because it seems I can't post any comment on this short that I'm about to share with you. And well, it is a little infuriating in that I think I have something useful to contribute, and they keep deleting my comments or disabling me from commenting on these shorts. I don't know if it's deliberate or a consequence of AI censorship. That is the default option. I don't know, but it is frustrating to say the least. Why don't they just let me say what I want to say and tell me if it's silly and wrong? If it's silly and wrong, it's so passive aggressive to pretend to be engaging while secretly or not so secretly deleting my comments. I thought the whole point was to have a civilized discussion about this and that, and if we disagree, then I can tell you my reasons and you can tell me my reasons, instead of this deleting of comments. So here goes. This is a very long-winded discussion about the book of Job, and in my view, asking the wrong question about Job. Because the question and the answer is obvious. To me, anyway. We'll see if you agree.
Jess asked you such an interesting question about Job. He told me, was Job wise? But that's such a subtle question, because the whole premise behind the book of Job is that, well, how do you know that you're in the favor of the gods? You have many sons and daughters, and your flocks flourish, and I do the sacrifice, I'm good to the men at the gate. And then, of course, it all collapsed. The raiders comes in, the house, the whirlwind takes down the house, and the friends say, Job, you have no wisdom. How do we know? It all collapsed.
I have a different interpretation of the book of Job. I think the book of Job is there because of an axial confrontation with the Bronze Age idea, the just world hypothesis, that the world is intrinsically just,
right,
and runs as just machinery,
right,
and it doesn't.
Right.
Okay, so if you want to listen to the rest of this waffle, feel free to go there. I'll put the link in the description in a bit after I have explained my position on Job. It's really quite straightforward. If you accept that suffering is punishment for sin, then you would logically and necessarily ask what Job had done wrong to deserve the punishment he was getting. So, the answer must be that Job didn't do anything wrong. He was grateful to God for his good fortune, his children, his wealth, his health, until it was all taken away from him. And then his friends were wondering if he had done anything wrong, and were even saying that he must have done something wrong to be afflicted with so much suffering. And Job kept saying he couldn't think of anything that he'd done. And he had this annoying wife who kept telling him to curse God and die, to really make this Jewish point about emunah and bitachon. So emunah is knowledge that God exists. Bitachon is the belief that God will act for benign reasons and it will all turn out well in the end. So you could say that by telling her husband to curse God and die, she certainly wasn't denying the existence of God, but she was certainly denying that God was well intentioned towards Job. But that's only incidental. The main point is that Job had not done anything to be punished for his sin, but instead he was being tried so that he would get something even better than leading a happy, healthy, prosperous life and dying thanking God. It would be, well, he wouldn't be particularly remembered. He wouldn't get his own book of Job in the Tanakh, would he, if he just led an uneventful life, was happy, was healthy, was prosperous, nothing bad happened to him. So the point was that Job was being tried to see if he would get his own book in the Old Testament. And that was a purpose. It was a trial, and Job passed it. And therefore, his story is now the story of anyone who cares to understand and learn from this story. But if you were to listen to the rest of this stream, it was all about, I don't even know. It was just blather and nonsense, really. And why ask if Job was wise? He was merely obedient. I guess he was wise to be obedient, or he wouldn't have got his own book of Job in the Old Testament, would he? Yes, thank you, Assad. That is obviously the correct understanding of Job. It should be obvious. And so you can hear these Christians asking themselves, well, I don't know, it was just a lot of blather. Maybe I should play it just to, make the point. Yes, thank you, Assad. A prophet is basically somebody with a story that has a moral lesson. Yes, let's just continue playing this nonsensical exchange that doesn't even mean anything.
Right, because Auschwitz, this is the question we have been asking since the Axial Revolution. How do we know when somebody knows? And I'm not trying to do epistemology here, okay? Right. But what we've said is, well, what we do is we come up with ecologies of practices for reducing self-deception, and that's what the scientific methods, there isn't a single scientific method. The scientific methods are this, and we've figured out certain kinds of argumentation, certain dialogical relations, reduce the chance of self-deception, increase the chance that none of these are foolproof, they're all error-prone, but we can constantly work to make them more self-improving.
How will we measure the good on the other side of this shift? Just like Job's friends were measuring it before the shift, and Job is enacting the shift. And if we're in the middle of the shift, if we are in fact in that shift, what will the good look like?
After the shift?
Yes.
This is like, sorry, I'm hesitating because the dauntingness of the philosophical question you're posing, like you're asking, like, how do we, what's our sort of ultimate standards by which we evaluate if something is good or bad? The theology of the Axial Age is fundamentally different from the theology of the Bronze Age.
Yes.
You look at the Egyptian theology
Yes.
and you look at Platonic theology.
And you're arguing that the new theologies are also going to pass through
That's right.
a similar transformation.
That's right. And you can't know, I can't tell you how it's going to be better until we're there. It's like I can't tell you what it's going to be like to be a parent until I've had a child.
Because even the definition of better will change.
Yes.
Yes.
I think we're in agreement then.
Yes.
And I'm worried that we're leaving you out.
Yeah.
Jess asked you such an interesting question about Job.
Yeah, everyone is left out because if you don't know, it's just the sort of pseudo-intellectual discourse. Then you'd think, oh, I must be stupid for not understanding any of this. But in fact, it doesn't mean anything at all. It's just a bunch of Christian blather not leading anywhere, just showing off, wasting time, wasting energy. Cut to the chase.